Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Market Update, where we discuss leading financial and economic developments in Europe, Asia, and North America. My name is Tony. We have a big video today. The third development on Germany is especially concerning and interesting. But first up, we begin in Asia with the land of the rising sun. The Bank of Japan took another step toward unwinding decades of ultra-loose monetary policy over the weekend, announcing plans to gradually sell down its massive holdings of exchange-traded funds, ETFs, while leaving the door open to further rate hikes as soon as October. The central bank said that it would start reducing its more than 75 trillion yen, that's just over $500 billion stockpile of ETFs by around $4.2 billion a year, marking the first time it has spelled out a plan for offloading assets accumulated under the former governor. At that rate, it would take over a century to unwind the entire position. Still, markets recoiled at the symbolism. The Nikkei 225 erased earlier gains to close down 0.6% in trading on Monday, while bond yields rose as investors priced in the chance of near-term tightening. Governor Kazuo Ueda tried to strike a balance between patience and persistence. Quote, "We won't be here in 100 years' time," end quote, he quipped at a post-decision press conference. Quote, "But our intention is to keep selling for more than 100 years. End quote. Sales could begin early next year. People with the matter have told several outlets, including Japanese financial media outlet Nikkei Asia. The policy board voted 7-2 to keep the benchmark rate steady at 0.5%. The first time two members dissented in favor of a hike since Ueda took office in 2023. Economists say the split reflects rising pressure on the Bank of Japan to move, with swaps markets pricing in the probability of an October hike at more than 50%. Now, let's take a step back and look at the context of the wider economy. Japan's inflation cooled to 2.7% in August, the slowest in 9 months, but still above the Bank of Japan's 2% target. Wage growth remains resilient, a key driver of Ueda's cautious normalization push. Yet the external backdrop has grown more complicated. Exports fell for a fourth straight month, slipping 0.1% from a year earlier, as shipments to the United States tumbled 13.8% by value, led by cars and steel. The drag stems in part from US President Donald Trump's tariff regime. A July deal lowered duties on Japanese cars to 15% from 27.5%, but the new universal tariff of 15% on automobiles still took effect on the 16th of September. Japanese automakers slashed prices to preserve US market share, cutting into profits and potentially constraining their ability to lift wages. Steel exports to the United States, still facing a 50% levy, dropped more than 26% by value. Such headwinds threaten the fragile, virtuous cycle of inflation, wages, and growth that Ueda hopes will underpin Japan's exit from decades of deflation. Quote, "We have to look at how much tariff policy risks materialize in the Japanese economy and prices," end quote, the governor said. Bond markets responded swiftly too. Two-year government yields climbed to their highest since the global financial crisis in 2008. Japan's government bonds have been the worst performers globally this year, with a 4% loss, excluding currency effects. The Bank of Japan's announcement also comes amid political uncertainty. Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba's decision to step down has triggered a leadership race, while conservative contender Zane Takaichi has pledged to prioritize aggressive fiscal and monetary support. Analysts say heightened volatility in rates and currency markets is likely as the Bank of Japan balances domestic political flux with external shocks. Even so, economist Taro Kimura noted that the decision to pair risk asset holdings reflects confidence in market resilience. With stock prices climbing 26% since April, quote, "Two dissenters calling for a hike signal momentum and increasing toward taking the next step," end quote, he wrote. Ueda's challenge is crystal clear. Unwind extraordinary stimulus without choking off a fragile recovery, and do so under the shadow of global trade wars. And speaking of the trade war, next up we move to North America. Over the weekend, US President Donald Trump unveiled a sweeping immigration initiative aimed at attracting the world's wealthiest individuals while simultaneously tightening restrictions on skilled worker visas. At a White House signing ceremony, the US President announced the creation of the so-called Trump Gold Card, a residency visa priced at $1 million plus fees. Quote, "They're going to spend a lot of money to come in," end quote, Trump said in the Oval Office, adding, quote, "It's going to raise billions and billions of dollars, which is going to go to reduce taxes, pay off debt, and for other good things." End quote. According to a website accompanying the announcement, applicants will undergo a $15,000 vetting process conducted by the Department of Homeland Security. A higher tier, so-called premium card, costs $5 million and would allow recipients to spend up to 270 days annually in the United States without being subject to U.S. taxes on non-U.S. income. Businesses can also obtain residency for employees through a $2 million corporate gold card fee per worker, with the option to transfer access between staff for an additional charge. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, who joined Trump at the launch, said revenue from the program will flow into a special Treasury fund to promote U.S. commerce and industry. Lutnick added that the gold card will eventually replace existing EB-1 and EB-2 visas for individuals with extraordinary or exceptional abilities, while other green card categories could be suspended. Quote, "This will be the model that people can come into the country with," end quote, Lutnick said. The program showcases Trump's dual approach to immigration, courting wealthy investors while raising the bar for foreign workers. On the same day, the president confirmed plans to impose a $100,000 application fee on H-1B visas, which have long been used by technology and consulting firms to recruit foreign engineers. Trump argues that the overhaul will ensure companies hire more American graduates, while also curbing what he called, quote, "systemic abuses," end quote, of the visa system. The move drew sharp reactions. Shares of IT consulting firms fell on Friday, reflecting concern over higher costs for hiring foreign talent. Meanwhile, critics warned that restricting H-1Bs could push technology jobs overseas, even as the administration insists the golden visa will help draw capital investment and create new employment at home. Trump has suggested as many as 1 million people could purchase gold cards, though some commentators doubt that the pool of potential buyers is anywhere near that large. Still, the initiative signals a dramatic reordering of U.S. immigration priorities and a changing domestic environment where companies will have a higher incentive to hire American talent rather than drawing from overseas pools. Whether this immigration change will be on net a positive or negative for the US economy, only time will tell. If you want to be on top of the most up-to-date analysis on the biggest developments in the world's most important economies, consider subscribing to Market Update. Hit the bell notification icon and you will be. And if you're getting some value from today's episode, don't forget to hit the like button. And finally for today, Germany's conservative Chancellor Friedrich Merz has ignited a political storm by declaring that Europe's largest economy can no longer afford its expansive welfare state. Quote, "The welfare state, as we know it today, can no longer be financed by our economy, and that is why we have to change it," end quote, he told members of his Christian Democratic Union, CDU. His remarks, delivered as Germany embarks on a €1 trillion debt-funded program to modernize its military and overhaul crumbling infrastructure, set up a confrontation with his center-left coalition partners. The backlash was immediate. Merz's Labour minister and co-chair of the Social Democratic Party, SPD, dismissed his statement as, quote, "bullshit," end quote. The dispute reflects a broader European dilemma. Governments face ballooning welfare costs even as growth slows and voters resist reforms. Britain's Labour government retreated from efforts to rein in benefits, while in France mass protests over pensions helped topple a prime minister. And indeed, recently we saw another prime minister toppled when he tried to not reverse the deficit but just reduce it. We have been following both of these developments on Market Update. Now we look at Germany, a nation many assumed was in a better fiscal position, but in reality, in some ways, Germany's position is worse. UK-based The Financial Times recently published a series of useful charts that really help us visualize the nature of Germany's crisis. Germany's welfare state, rooted in Otto von Bismarck's 19th century social insurance schemes, has grown into the world's largest, consuming 31.2% of GDP in 2023. Healthcare and long-term care costs have surged well above inflation, even as the economy has endured more than 3 years of stagnation. The German president recently praised the welfare state as a treasure, but warned it must be made, quote, fit for the future, end quote. 3/4 of Germany's 1.35 trillion euro in welfare outlays go to pensions and health insurance, with civil servants' retirement costs adding further pressure. The country's demographic outlook is daunting too. 16.5 million baby boomers will retire by 2036, while just 12.5 million younger workers are expected to enter the labour market. Experts describe pensions as the elephant in the room. Axel Bosch-Supan, please forgive my pronunciation if that is incorrect, of the Max Planck Institute warns that rising life expectancy will steadily worsen imbalances. Merz has floated tax exemptions for those who work past a retirement age, but avoiding tackling early retirement incentives. Meanwhile, the coalition has pledged to maintain pensions at 48% of average wages until 2031 and expand benefits for non-working mothers, a promise that would add 5 billion euros annually to costs. A commission on pension reform will convene next year, but critics warn such panels often serve as vehicles for delay. Merz has also targeted the Bürgergeld, and once again, forgive my German pronunciation, a basic income for 5.5 million recipients introduced in 2023. Though it represents just 3.5% of welfare spending, it has become a lightning rod, particularly for the right. Nearly half of its 47 billion euro cost goes to foreigners, including Ukrainian refugees. Merz wants 5 billion euros in annual savings, though constitutional limits may constrain cuts. Rising welfare costs have also squeezed employers, who must match employee contributions. Non-wage labour costs have already climbed to 42.5% of salaries and could approach 50% within a decade. Analysts warn that this trend erodes competitiveness and deters hiring just as the workforce shrinks. The clash over welfare reform encapsulates Germany's central economic challenge: how to balance social protections with fiscal sustainability and competitiveness. For Merz, the test will be whether his rhetoric translates into concrete reform, or whether Germany's welfare state will continue to creak under the weight of its own promises. Okay, that is today's episode of Market Update. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Have a good Monday, have a productive week, and I hope to see you for another episode tomorrow.